Hello, welcome to the 𝐓𝐇𝐎𝐿 Show. It's your life, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful day. I know Michelle and we are enjoying. Kind of mild temperature in Texas right now, but it's not hot at this particular moment. It's gonna be hotter later. So wherever you're joining us from, whether you're joining us from E360 TV, transverse television, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever mechanism, Facebook, whatever you're watching us on, welcome to the show. And if you want to be part of the show, all you have to do is just go to the comments, ask any questions that you might have, and I promise you, I will get you an answer. So Michelle, we got this absolutely wonderful guest that's coming on today to educate us and talk to us a little bit about striving and living with ADHD. Yeah, so what are
Yes,
your
most
thoughts?
definitely. I'm excited about it. He's going to talk about, natural ways to alleviate some of the symptoms of ADHD. And I know the public has heard of ADHD for many years, but sometimes I believe they don't really know exactly what it is and what it entails and some of the symptoms. So we'll learn a little bit about not only the guest, but about the recommendations that he has. And also this guest has an amazing podcast as well. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. And he's doing a lot of good things. So definitely excited about the show.
I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to know a little bit more about ADHD and also this absolutely wonderful guest that we have on today. And I tell you what, Michelle, why don't you introduce the title, purpose, and introduce our absolutely wonderful guest?
Well, yes, the title of today's show is Thriving with ADHD. Pharma industry veteran and health educator Troy Duell shares natural approaches to managing symptoms. And we're going to talk up to Troy, get a little learn about his background, talk about ADHD and the natural steps that people can take in order to help cope with their symptoms without medication, and how establishing routines and structure throughout the day is essential for proper management, and also different lifestyles and dietary changes that can help. Troy Duell is a highly experienced health educator and founder of Centurion Labs, a leading manufacturer of safe, effective, and affordable healthcare products. With over 10 years in the industry, he has dedicated himself to helping others lead healthier lives through his innovative research-backed approach. He believes that everyone should have access to quality healthcare and works hard to make sure this is achieved by providing people with evidence-based information on nutrition, exercise, lifestyle changes, and more. His commitment to improving public health has made him an invaluable asset in the field of health education. He was a professional soccer player, teacher, and coach before entering the pharmaceutical industry. Can't wait to hear about that. So he holds a BS from the University of Alabama and an MA from Regent University. Please welcome to the show, Troy Duell.
How you doing,
Thank
Troy?
you.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited about being here.
Man, we glad to have you. And hey, which part of Alabama are you from, man?
I'm in Birmingham, Alabama.
I kind of grew up a little bit in a place called Graham, Alabama. I don't know if you ever heard
I,
of that. It's close
I
to Boughton, Georgia, Carrollton, Georgia.
okay. Yep. I'm familiar with Carrollton, but not Graham, Alabama. It must not be one of the bigger places that you've lived.
Well, probably the most tiniest place, but we called it home at one stage or another. Hey, Troy, can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, just about your background and how you went from being a professional soccer, all that, to pharmaceuticals?
Absolutely. It certainly sounds a lot more interesting than it is, but I grew up in Virginia, was born there, and then we moved down to Florida when I was about third grade, and consider Florida really home for me for my growing years anyway. Then I went to the University of Alabama, and through all that was playing soccer and really investing in my health and training, and kind of had a desire and a passion to get into that. And still call Florida my home, but I've been in Birmingham for 23 years now, I guess. So really been here longer than I ever was in Florida. But I'm a true Southern boy, I guess. is the best way to put it. And from there, when I was at Alabama, I got involved in the sports medicine program that was there and really dove into ways to try to get your body more efficient and healthier, and really had a passion about what are ways that we can make ourselves healthier and begin to take ownership of our health so your body could perform at the best level possible. And that was kind of my passion, which led into pharmaceuticals, and spent several years selling pharmaceuticals, and went on to start Centurion Labs, which is a small pharmaceutical company. But over the years, as I studied, I didn't want to just do pharmaceuticals. I wanted to provide products, or have products and understand products that, whether they're pharmaceuticals, OTC products, or supplements, whichever one had the most data that would help people without getting people hooked on products. So that was kind of my passion.
Wow. You're right. Healthcare, pharmaceuticals, all of those things are so important. And we have brilliant people like yourself to go out and study and make lifestyle changes, and all for the better of all of us. So Troy, if you had to uh, describe yourself with one adjective, because I can tell you a go-getter. Yeah, if you had to describe yourself with one adjective, what would you tell our public that adjective is and why?
I don't know if this is an adjective or not, because I'm clearly not a literary specialist, but I would say a truth seeker. And the reason I would say I'm a truth seeker is because no matter what area of life it is, whether it's the spiritual, whether it's the individual health, or even family, my desire and my passion is to find what is the driving force behind something, and really look for the truth. And whether that takes me down the road of, hey, this is something that I thought was going to be there, or this is something that is totally new to me, that's where I want to go. And truly believe that in all of us, that's kind of the drive and passion that we have deep down. And I think God really designed me with that passion to go after things that are true.
I'm just going back a little bit from soccer to teaching. Was there a moment uh, when you were doing those things that it was one of them aha moments where it caught your attention and said, I have to, this is what I want to do. I just found out what God, my higher power is leading me to do. Was there a moment, or is just something that you always wanted to do?
I think as a kid, I always loved healthcare. And I think I always envisioned myself being in healthcare in some way, shape, or form. I just didn't know what that would look like. And I don't know if I could have laid it out and been where I am today if I had laid it out. But clearly, you can see evidence of kind of a path that God was taking me on to learn about myself, to get involved in training and understanding health that way through my experiences at Alabama, and then getting involved in other smaller pharmaceutical companies, and then some big ones that really opened my eyes to a lot of things that were going on that were both good and bad in the industry, that took me to where I am today.
So tell us, what is a health educator, and what do you all do?
Well, health educator is really just a fancy word for somebody who loves to research things, to go in, that's right, and go in and learn something about a disease or a disease state, and then find out, are there ways that we can overcome this? And are there natural ways to do that? And really, my goal is to say, hey, in this case, what we're talking about today, it's ADHD. Are there ways with ADHD that we can do that more naturally and not be caught up in the pharmaceutical world where we've got to rely on these products? So, I think pharmaceuticals are great, and I think there is a place for them. But if I had my druthers, it would always be, use the pharmaceutical for a time until you can get things in order in your life, in your diet, in your exercise, whatever it is, to then come out of it and not have to be reliant upon those things anymore. Probably the best example would be high blood pressure or cholesterol. Those are huge issues amongst our population. Diabetes is another one. But if we just took better care of ourselves and really took ownership of our health with what we ate, with how we exercised, most of those medications would be needed on a very, very limited basis.
And you're absolutely right, because especially in the African American communities, those three that you just identified, high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, runs heavily, especially in the South. I'm not
That's
just picking that out, but
Well, we like our food in the South, and we like our fried food in the South. So that hits home no matter who you are, no matter where you're from. If you're in the South, you like some fried food, and unfortunately, it's great for our taste buds, but not so good for the rest of our body.
oh yeah, I mean it's good, and I miss like Troy, I miss that Southern food, man. But
Mm,
I have learned over a period of time to adjust, because all the stuff that you said that most of us probably have diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. I got great news yesterday from my doctor, where he took me off the blood pressure medicine that I have been on
congratulations.
for the last, I guess, 10 years. And just through diet and exercise and understanding, the foods and the stuff that we need in order to have healthier bodies, I believe it's so important to us to understanding health, not just from a physical, but from also a mental perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree, and want to stop and say congratulations first, because that is a huge feat when you're able to go in, have the discipline to take control of your health and your exercise to get yourself off of one of those medications. Because there will more than likely come a time in our life where we have to have certain medications. But if if we can do everything possible to keep us off of those, I think that is the best way and best course possible for each of our lives. So totally agree with you.
Wow. We got to take a station break, but I am excited uh, to come back, because I want to talk about Centurion Labs and how you started that, and all the ideas that you have. Plus, we want to get off into the topic of the show, where we talk about ADHD. So, listeners, our listeners out there, and whoever is watching, if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is go to the comments. Ask this great man any question that you like. I promise you, I get it on the screen. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do.
Welcome back to It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James 𝐷𝐐𝐒, and we got Troy. Uh, and Troy is breaking it down. I think Troy, I don't want to mess up your last name, but I think it's Duell.
You can say Duell, you can say Duel, either one. I'll answer to anything.
But this is exciting, Troy. I am interested in finding out. I know, you switched professions and you started, and now you got Centurion Labs. How did you get started? How did it was, I know it's an idea, but how did you figure out how to lay the foundation, to start the blueprint, and just turn this into a successful organization?
Yeah, it's like everything. There is a life of its own. And I was working with a small pharmaceutical company here in Birmingham, Alabama, and had gone in-house kind of to train all the new reps and new hires. So I was doing a lot of research and doing a lot of investigation on some of the products that we were using and some of the products that we were going to bring to market. There were a couple products that they decided to pass on, but I really thought were great products or had good potential to move down the road. And it really opened my eyes to a new avenue, which was some of the supplement industry and the potential to really benefit people from that. And as I went down that path, I saw that opportunity and found some other OTC products that we decided to come out with, and I think I'm a shining example of the saying, ignorance is bliss, because I was ignorant, didn't know exactly everything it took to get involved in opening a company. But because of that ignorance, I think it helped propel me along, because I was ignorant enough to work hard to make it happen. And I think I had some avenues open up where God really opened some doors to have that come about, and continued working on the side while I was trying to build the business to get it to where I could go full time with it.
Wow. So we talked about, the title of the show is Helping with ADHD, and, in the industry for us, and, you in the pharmaceutical industry. Most people really don't know what ADHD really is. Can you explain to our viewers and our listeners what is ADHD and some of the symptoms?
Yeah, I think all of us at some point probably joke about the fact that we have ADHD, and we all probably have some element of ADHD in our lives, because if you put me, or really anybody else, in a restaurant where there are 50 to 100 TVs all around us, I guarantee whoever I'm with is not going to get my undivided attention, especially if it happens to have a couple of sports or games on that I'm wanting to watch. So that gets very, very difficult. But what they do is they now have, it's called the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistics Manual for mental health disorders. ADHD is one of those, and there are three components to it. They've got three different types, one called ADHD inattention, one called ADHD hyperactivity, and one called ADHD combined. And let me go ahead and read to you the exact definition that they have when it comes to ADHD. And that particular book says that to have ADHD, you have to have 6 or more symptoms of inattention for children up to age 16 years, or 5 or more for adolescents age 17 or older, and adults. So symptoms of inattention have been present for at least 6 months. So you have to have these things for 6 months, and they're inappropriate for developmental level. So often fails to give close attention to details, or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or with other activities. Often has trouble holding attention on task or play activities. Often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Often does not follow through on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, or duties in the workplace. For example, loses focus and gets sidetracked. Often has trouble organizing tasks and activities. Often avoids, dislikes, or is reluctant to tasks that require mental effort over a long period of time. Often loses things necessary for tasks and activities. is often easily distracted, is often forgetful in daily activities. So that's for someone who's inattentive. And the amazing thing is, I think all of us could probably see ourselves in one or two of those categories. But what they're looking for is for you to fall into those categories of 5 or 6 of them for a 6-month period. So it's happening all the time and not just those one-offs when you're at a restaurant with 150 different TVs and 30 different things going on around you.
So that's textbook definition. I think that's what you just read. But
Yes.
how would if most people, I get 5 to 6 of those in attention to detail, but what if the problem is even worse than that, meaning that it's you think it's ADHD, but it's more serious than that? How can a parent or how can somebody tell that, okay, this might be that, but it might be even more than that?
Well, and the amazing thing is, or I guess the most frustrating thing with ADHD is it's hard to tell because there's so much subjectiveness that goes into it. But we do know that there are a lot of things that are typically associated with it. So you can have what they call oppositional defiant syndrome with it too. You can have OCD with it. You can have certain elements of other things that come alongside ADHD that can make it either harder to say you have ADHD or harder to cope with it because you have these other elements that are there. But all of them have that same basis, which is you've got the inability to really sit still. And I mean, let's be honest, most boys between the ages of 5 and 15 have a very difficult time sitting in a desk. School was not really made for boys because most boys are super active. We like to be doing things. We like to be going out and getting involved in things that sometimes we shouldn't get involved in. But because of that, I think it's created this psyche within education on some people to say, just because Johnny can't sit in a seat means that he's got ADHD. Well, sometimes it's just that kid has more energy, more drive in certain things and more passions that school just doesn't do it for him. And he's got to find a job where maybe he works with his hands and he goes into the automotive industry. I have a son my oldest son was very much like that. He was smart kid, great kid, but he could not sit in a classroom. I don't think he necessarily had ADHD, but he certainly had this desire to work with his hands. And there's not a lot of working with your hands and ability to kind of get out and get physical and active when you're in a school setting. So that's a difficult thing for a lot of boys, especially, which is why I think there are 3 times as many boys who are diagnosed with ADHD than there are girls.
Diagnose, okay, what would you tell parents out there that's listening to us right now that says they're looking at their kid like, okay, what would be the first steps if a parent thought that their kid might have ADHD, and what are the steps in getting help for them?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to go into it with an opportunity to work with the teachers and see what they're doing at school, work with their coaches, see how they do in that atmosphere, because there will be an atmosphere if they've got ADHD and they are on the higher end of that where they're really struggling. It doesn't matter what setting they're in, they just can't cope with what's going on. And at that point, you've got to start looking into creating opportunities to go see a physician and begin to walk down that path of getting the diagnosis of being ADHD, which takes some time. There are tests, there are different checklists that they'll typically go through and say, okay, is your son or daughter having this issue at school? Is your son or daughter having this issue at home? And they'll have a whole list of things that you'll go through, and probably do some cognitive tests as well to see how they respond, how quickly they respond, and all those things tie in to come up with that diagnosis.
Yeah, so it just came across my mind. Is there any type of foods or other things that might be, causing or increasing the chances, especially a kid and even
Yeah,
adults as well.
absolutely. And I think that's probably where our healthcare community lets us down the most, and really even our educational community, because I think from a teacher standpoint, what they want is they want everybody in their desk. They want everybody to not be disrupting anything, which rightfully so. None of us want that. But there are some kids who that becomes a very, very difficult thing to happen. And just because it's harder for them and the teacher has to spend more time, a lot of times there are teachers who push this because it's easier for them in the classroom. And within the healthcare arena, they don't ask those questions of what are some of the other underlying components that could lead to this. We know based on studies that there are certain dyes, food dyes, processed foods, and preservatives that all contribute to ADHD. And oftentimes, if you can take those individuals away from it and no longer have them taking those dyes or that processed food, then a lot of those ADHD symptoms go away. And some of those dyes, I have them here just because I'm not bright enough to remember everything with it. But you can look for blue number 1 and 2 food coloring, green number 3, orange, red 3 and 40, yellow 5 and 6, and then sodium benzoate. So those are all things that you can look within your cupboard and say, all right, do any of these foods contain these components? Because we know from studies that those have been linked to ADHD. So you can start to take things away from your diet that can certainly benefit you and your child. Because if it's affecting your child, it's probably going to affect you as well.
You're actually absolutely right. So food. Is there any? We got about a minute before the break. Any supplements that you recommend? I'm talking about natural supplement that might be able to calm or ease the anxiety for someone that might be experiencing ADHD.
Absolutely. There are a lot out there now that you can really begin to look at. One is to really support what they call the methylation cycle. So the methylation cycle is just this cycle in our bodies that you have to have the proper nutrients in order for it to work. Those are folate, B12, vitamin B12, vitamin B6. And when I say folate, a lot of people think folic acid. But the truth is folic acid is one of the main issues that we've got that go into our food and into our supplements. So you want to steer clear of folic acid because it's a synthetic form. It's not the form that's actually found in nature. You want to go after L-methylfolate or folinic acid. And you want to go after on the B12, not cyanocobalamin, but instead adenosyl or methylcobalamin. And then there are certain herbs, a new one that has come up in recent years, which has been around a long time, but they've really started doing some studies on ADHD, which is called saffron. So you've heard of saffron rice. It's been used in medicines and foods for hundreds of years, mostly in the Middle East. But they've actually done some studies that show it works as well in helping to treat ADHD symptoms as methylphenidate, which is the number 1 prescribed stimulant medication for ADHD. So there is a lot of promise with some of those particular ingredients and things that you can look at. We also know that with vitamin D, if you're deficient in vitamin D, that those individuals typically have greater levels of ADHD or have ADHD. Iron is another one. Typically, that's a standalone. So if you're iron deficient, you may not have ADHD, but you can have the symptoms of ADHD and have expressed.
Hold that thought. We got to take a station break, but I want to get back and I want to pick it up with these supplements that you're recommending. I want to go even deeper into that because one of your questions that we came up with was there might be a shortage of a lot of medication and a lot of other things. So I'm going to talk about all those things. And if you want to be part of this great conversation with Troy, all you have to do is go to the comments, ask him any questions that you like. I promise you, I get you on. And it's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Coley. We'll see you shortly after the break.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me, and I can't get rid of this feeling. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Hey, I'm so drawn to you. I'm so drawn to you. Yeah, yeah.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I am truly, thoroughly enjoying this conversation that I'm having with Troy. I mean, it's so important that we understand that ADHD is serious. It's a problem that we all have to try to get under control as best we can, and we also have to understand that some of the things that we put in our system, or some of the way things that we do, might not contribute to making things better. So as Troy mentioned a few minutes ago, I mean, parents out there, if you noticing differences, if you're noticing certain things, you might want to catch it early as possible and get your kid or your whatever diagnosed to get a better understanding of exactly what it is. So Troy, I'm truly thoroughly enjoying this, and I see that we got Stacy Bullard just tune in with us. Stacy, how are you enjoying the show so far?
Oh my goodness. I hope you all can hear me. I think I'm a little glitchy. I see myself kind of going in and out, but I am truly enjoying it. I was actually exercising when the show came on, and I just was listening and was thinking to myself, what a wonderful topic. This is such a mystified, if I could say, condition, and so many people have stigmatisms and things that come along with it. But I'm so happy that you're here, Troy, and Dr. Cooley.
For you that don't know, Stacy will be coming on the air I think her show kicks off tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Stacy, can you take a minute or so, tell our viewers and our listeners, and tell Troy, what's the title of your show, what it's about?
Absolutely. The title of the show is Tools for Everyday Living. And another reason why I wanted to jump in on here, because you are providing some excellent tools for people to use on a daily basis and in their lives, and bringing awareness. And that's what Tools for Everyday Living does. We bring awareness to situations. We bring awareness. I always say, you know what? Your refrigerator needs repair. So does our life. But we have to have the proper tools. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about knowing who you are. Tomorrow's show is going to be great because it's talking about don't take it personal. And I'm sure that individuals who have experienced symptoms of ADHD have taken many things personal, because there's some people out there that's probably said some things to them that made them feel a certain way. So they need tools now that they can now effectively function in life. And I'm excited about this topic. I'm excited about my show too. So don't miss it. Tools for Everyday Living, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Hey, Stacy, thanks so much. Thanks so much. And I will be watching your show tomorrow. I will be watching, so, hey, Troy, I want to pick it back up where we was talking about the supplements, and we were talking about things that might be good for help controlling ADHD. Can you pick it up from there?
Absolutely. I think we were talking about iron, where iron deficiency. If an individual is iron deficient, a lot of the symptoms can masquerade itself as ADHD. So when you have ADHD symptoms, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've got ADHD. It could mean that you've just got a nutrient deficiency. And that's one area that you'd have to look at. I think I mentioned vitamin D and saffron, and also the B vitamins. Those are huge in order to get a hold of getting the best nutrients possible for your body to help itself overcome ADHD. And then zinc is another great supplement that you want to look at, because there have been studies that have tied it to ADHD. It's involved in about 300 different functions of our body. And as it does those things, if you have zinc deficiency, it doesn't do it very well. So our body has to have zinc in order to really function well and to be efficient and to overcome ADHD. The last one that I'll mention is phospholipids, or omega-3 fatty acids. So phospholipids are a component in our bodies. There are several different types, but one is phosphatidylserine and phosphatidylcholine. If you look and do a little bit of research on those, they have a great deal of effect on our bodies and our cell structure, and how our body can help overcome ADHD in particular, help calm our body down, and provide everything we need in the nutrients to help us overcome it.
So diagnosis, medicines that the physician recommend or provide. You're right that there might be a shortage in the industry on a lot of those things. Can you explain what type of medicine, why it's a shortage in the chain, the global chains, supply chains?
Yeah, and obviously during COVID, we got used to seeing shortages of some sort or another. But one thing we really didn't see much was the shortages in medications. And thankfully, it's not something that we saw a lot of. But in this case, the reason you're seeing shortages is not necessarily due to COVID, but it does relate to it to some degree. During COVID, there was a 26.5% increase in the number of people who are diagnosed with ADHD. Now, I think there are a lot of reasons for that, but probably one of the biggest is the fact that we were no longer in structure. People were no longer going to work. They weren't going to school, and they were trying to work at home, where there are all kinds of distractions. Maybe your kids are running through the living room. whatever, your neighbors are trying to come over, and you no longer have a set time to get up, a set time to go to bed, a set time to do your work. And that allowed us to go, wait, I think maybe I've got the symptoms of ADHD. And you saw a huge increase in uptick in the number of people who were diagnosed. So because you saw a huge uptick of people diagnosed, the number one medications that are prescribed are typically stimulants. They're amphetamines or class 2 controlled products by the government, which means that they are highly regulated, and the DEA comes in and regulates them. It's the same enforcement agency that deals with cocaine and all the illicit drugs. They're dealing with our products that have controlled substances. So opioids and stimulant medications like this for ADHD. Well, when they're dealing with stimulant medications that are legal, they only allow a certain amount of that product to be manufactured each year. And then you can request, the manufacturer can request to increase that amount. Typically, the most I've seen is about a 10% increase, maybe a 20% increase. Well, what happened was when you have a 26% increase in the number of people needing it, and you only have a 15% increase in the ability to make it, you're going to have a shortage. So that's where we are, and it just takes time for it to catch up. And I think we will. I don't know when we'll catch up, but we'll certainly catch up with the number and demand that we have. So that's probably the biggest reason for the shortage that I see out there.
Stacy had mentioned something. She said she was exercising when she was watching the show, and it caught her attention. Why is it important that people that are experiencing or might already been diagnosed with ADHD to maintain a healthy diet and a healthy exercise regimen? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the diet we've discussed a little bit, which is more and more of our food has become processed, which means that they're putting dyes in there to make it look better or to make it more palatable for us as we're eating it. And they're putting more and more sugars in there. So a lot of corn syrup, a lot of fake sugars, and all those things start to build up in our system. So the more we can avoid those processed foods, the better off we're going to be overall in our diet. And then I think from an exercise standpoint, the two things that you always see with just about every disease that we come across is diet and exercise. And ADHD is no different. So diet for sure. And then exercise, they've actually done some studies that showed that when people exercised at least 30 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week, their ability to focus and to be attentive to things really increased in individuals. So we want to make sure that we're exercising because we know that that's a healthy, good strategy to help overcome ADHD. And we want to do it consistently and not just on a sporadic basis.
You mentioned something called brown noise, and you just mentioned focus a second ago. What exactly is brown noise?
Brown noise, if you're familiar with white noise, it's usually that noise that a lot of people play in the background to go to sleep or to drown out any noise that's around them. Brown noise is very similar. It just takes the high frequencies that are in white noise and plays them softer, and it takes those low frequencies and plays them louder. And there are a couple of studies. There are not a lot out there yet, but it seems pretty promising that brown noise really, and they're not real sure why, but in people who have ADHD, it helps turn on those areas of the brain that are not being used and allows them to get that focus and attention back together. So that's kind of the idea behind brown noise. So if you've got ADHD or you're struggling with it and you're trying to work or you're trying to study, it may be a great idea to find an app that has brown noise on it and play it in the background and see how it works for you.
You know what? This is such an interesting conversation, interesting topic. We're going to take a station break. I can't wait to get back from the station break because we're going to talk to Troy a lot more about a lot of things about symptoms, but I also want to chat with him a little bit about his podcast and get a chance to get an idea of what that is. So if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is just go to the comments, ask this great man any questions that you like. It's your life. I'm Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We'll be back shortly after the break. Hello. Hey, I'm James Cooley. I am the founder and CEO of the 𝐊𝐔𝐘𝐒 Foundation, Options, Opportunities, / Choice Program. Our primary mission is to help build a foundation of our youth and young adults and communities. And we encourage everyone to dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. And the way that you do that is, first of all, you got to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to know that you are here for a purpose. You also have to be able to step out your comfort zone and do things that you probably didn't think that you can do.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Life is a series of circles and cycles, phrases and stages. These experiences teach you the lessons of life. You can either ignore them or embrace them. Welcome to It's Your Life with James Cooley. James is a motivational speaker, author, military veteran, and founder of the J.C. Cooley Foundation. James is here to equip you to strive for greatness and overcome adversity. It's time to get you equipped today for the challenges of tomorrow. Now, here's the host of It's Your Life, James Cooley.
Hello, welcome back to It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James Cooley. And I tell you, Troy, my guest today, putting it down, laying it out there, educating everybody around the world, so, and a couple of key points he hit is we have to be very cognizant of what we put in our system. Sometimes we have to look at the back of the labels of what we eat. And also, exercising. It has to be a part of your life. I believe a person should pay themselves with physical fitness, exercising, just like they pay their bills every day. I believe that that's a payment that have to be paid. And because if you pay your bills, that means you won't get evicted, you won't get this, you won't get that. You get a chance to stick around a little while longer. So that's just my 2 cents on that, Troy. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think if more people took ownership of their health and realized that the decisions they make day in and day out have a huge and lasting impact on their day-to-day life, but even on their longevity, I think it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, if you have kids and you're not healthy and doing the best you can, it's a lot harder to keep up with them. If you're trying to get to work and you're not as efficient as you possibly could be with your body, it makes work a lot harder. I think there's just a lot more joy and a lot more opportunity for us to get out and do what we're called to do if we take care of ourselves. And that starts with what we eat and exercise.
Wow. So, Troy, we kind of going to go on what we call this little express round because we got about 6.5 minutes left for the show and a couple of things I want to get through. In your opinion, do you believe there are some cases where people over-medicating themselves regarding their symptoms?
I definitely agree with that. And I think I mentioned it earlier. Anytime we get on medication, I think it's great to get on it for a short time. And our ultimate goal is to how quickly can we get off this medication? Because if you can control it through diet and exercise and through a little bit of discipline, you are going to be far better off in the long run than taking a medication of any sort.
So you had mentioned earlier, maybe it was doing research that you suggested trying independent pharmacies when searching for medications. What are they able to do that the big pharmacies can't do?
I think the biggest thing is when you go to an independent pharmacy, you can typically feel the difference. If it's a good independent pharmacy, they take a much greater interest in you as a patient. And they also have to fight against those big box stores. So they're going to think outside the box. They're entrepreneurs. So they've already fought the good fight to get the store opened, to keep it open. And they're going to look for ways that they can get you that medication you need. So if you're short on an ADHD medication or some other medication, it's not uncommon that if you go to an independent pharmacy, if they don't have it, they'll make more calls to try to get it in than, say, some of those big box stores. At least in the experiences that I've had, that has been the case for sure.
I believe you are absolutely right on that one. Yeah, I know you're right on that one. Troy, tell me about your podcast. I can't wait. Tell me what it's called, what it's about, when it comes on. It's just tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's called Frontline Health. And our idea behind this podcast is really sharing different ingredients that we may come across that have new studies about them, or different disease states and ways that you can help control that. Or we had a podcast recently, which I know that you had mentioned earlier, about the medication shortages and what to do and ways to overcome that. So ultimately, it's all about taking ownership of your health so you can get out there and make these decisions for yourself. Because I think as a culture, for the most part, we have decided, hey, they're experts in healthcare, and I'm not going to have to do anything. I'm just going to show up to the doctor and do what they say. But if we didn't learn anything else from COVID, I think the one thing we can say we learned is we need to take ownership of our health, and we need to do it in a big way before something else like COVID pops up, because those people who had fewer comorbidities or fewer diseases, meaning diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever else, fared much better than those people who didn't.
So when do your show come on? What podcast?
Yeah, so it's on all podcast, any place you can find a podcast. You can go out there and look for it, Frontline Health by CenturionLabs.com. And typically we'll release something every Monday. We do that for about 13 to 14 weeks. And then we take a month to 6 weeks off, and then we start those podcasts back up. So we're on season 2 or 3 right now, and looking forward to getting back out there and bringing some new things. So any place you find podcasts, you can find Frontline Health by Centurion Labs.
So podcast, you mean visual and audio, or just?
We are just audio. There's only so much that people can take of looking at me, so I try to keep it just audio.
Well, if you decide to change your mind and go both, talk to me.
All right, sounds good. I like it.
And I tell you, because I'm a network president on E360, and we have hosts, and Stacy will be my latest host, television, podcasts, etc. So I just like your style. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And got 1 minute less. What are some takeaways that you want our viewers and our listeners to get from this great conversation? 1 minute less.
I think that it goes back to that taking ownership of your health. Look, it doesn't matter if you're overweight now, if you've got diabetes, if you have ADHD, whatever condition it is, there are really 2 simple things you can do that will always benefit you no matter the condition. And that's diet and exercise. And if we can take ownership of those pieces of our health, we are going to be far, far better than you are today. And take those baby steps. Don't be scared to begin that journey, because if it's overweight, then begin to do little things like taking the stairs, do other things that can help you really get to where you want to go. Because the truth is, you will be a much healthier, much happier, much more joyful person if your health is there. If we don't have health, we really don't have much of anything in this world, because we're not going to be able to help people. We're not going to be able to work, and we're not going to be able to do all that stuff well. So take ownership of your health and do it well.
Troy, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the James Cooley Show. It's your life. Thank you. We'd love to have you back again if you have time in your schedule. So I'd like to thank my executive producer, Dr. Michelle Cooley, for always putting together absolutely fantastic shows. Most importantly, I'd like to thank my viewers and our listeners for tuning in to the James Cooley It's Your Life, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live. Remember to always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. It's your life. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.